The script will loop through, running to the chest. Oh, we just got one. You can load into the landing on the Pale Heart and run a macro that'll pick up this chest in the area and reload the landing. Each time you open this chest, it gives you a small chance at getting an exotic class item if you've already gotten one from Dual Destiny. This process is pretty slow, but there are versions of the macro that can be done while being tabbed out of Destiny and doing something else on your computer. I mean, no, these can definitely only be done while at your keyboard staring at the macro and doing nothing else. In all honesty, you're probably wondering if Bungie will ban you from running a macro in Destiny. It's a fair question because having your character run around and automatically pick up loot makes it so you have a chance at getting better loot than someone else who doesn't do that. In my opinion, this is like driving 60 in a 55. It's no big deal. Bungie says any advanced macros are against TOS of Destiny. It's tough to say what qualifies as advanced in their eyes. From my understanding, no one in the history of the game has ever been banned due to a macro. There are checkpoint bots that only sit in the helm and automatically launch activities like King's Fall, Golgoroth Maze. Big shout out to Golgoroth Maze CP #9613. And they've been doing this for years. Then there are players who are in the maze, macroing to kill 5 thrall that spawn repeatedly in order to level up their bonus power levels so they don't get burnt out on the game to achieve high enough levels to not be at a disadvantage in in-game content like Grandmasters, plus 20 on the artifact. Holy God. Then there are collection macros that pop up from time to time where people pull stuff from collections, delete it, get materials like cores and shards or glimmer. Bungie responds to each of these problems by either 1, ignoring it. Why would Bungie ban people logged into the game running macros since it keeps the player count higher? Or 2, patching it if they think it's causing harm to the in-game economy or the game in general. Is the Destiny player base really going to be in shambles because a few thousand players are pulling an exotic class item once every few hours that has a 1 in 64 chance to be a role they want? Bungie will most likely patch this soon so the chest close to the spawn point doesn't spawn anymore, making a macro much more difficult to be used because of all the randomness that can occur when running around in game. So how do you set up the macro? First, you need to download the latest version of Auto Hotkey. I'm not about to walk you through that. Google it, please. Then you need to decide if you want to run the simple mouse and keyboard version that requires you to be tabbed into the game, or a more complex virtual controller version that lets you be tabbed out of Destiny while it still runs in the background. For the mouse and keyboard version, all you need to do is download the script in the description of the YouTube video, then open the script with the text editor. I use Notepad++ that you can see here. You're going to want to open the script, right-click it, go to Edit. I edit with Notepad++. You can edit with whatever you want. Here's the text version. Any line that has a semicolon on it is just a comment. It's not actual macro or a command. So the creator of this is 7 Oil Rigs. Check out his video in the description. He's the one that came up with this. I've edited it. Here, you can change the values to your keybind. So what is the button that opens your map? Mine is B. I know that's weird. What is your button for interact? Mine is F. My sprint is shift. My ghost button is 6. Don't ask. My orbit is 8. Whatever. Change those to your buttons. Also, the macro requires you have the following settings. This actually isn't true anymore. 1440p or 1920 times 1080 res will work. Either one of these resolutions will work. Make sure your mouse DPI is 800 with no mouse acceleration on. In-game sensitivity for your mouse needs to be 7. Your FPS can be anything, but 30 is more consistent. The instructions are press open bracket when you're in the landing to start the macro. It'll pull up the map, click the fast travel, and load you in and run to this point, and press escape to stop the macro. After you make your changes here for your keybinds, save it, and then you can just double click it like this. Or one thing you do is you can come down to the bottom right in your system tray, right click and reload it if you have to make multiple changes. So saving it doesn't change the script. You have to reload the script after it's saved. You can also change what button you want to start the script by changing this character right here, maybe a function key like F4. And you can also change the button that stops the script, maybe F8. This script will loop through 40 times before heading to orbit in order to reset your overthrow, since bad things happen in this area that mess the macro up at level 2. If you have issues where you turn too far to the side or run too far, you'll need to scroll through here, look at the comments on the right that tell you what's happening, and then make the necessary tweaks to the code on the left if it doesn't work perfectly for you because of your different setup. So how far you turn, how long you run for, etc. But these worked when I tested it on 1440p and 1080p with these settings. Now for the more complex virtual controller version that lets you run the macro while being tabbed out, you'll need to head to Antra's Discord for macros and scripts and go to the community macros chest farm thread as seen here. A few notes about this version of the macro is that in order for a virtual controller to control your game, you need to install software that can actually do this. It's called VIGEM Wrapper. Luckily, Antra and whoever else worked on this script is super smart and was actually able to include the install as this text within the macro so that you don't have to do it. So the first time you double click on the script, if you don't get a "you have the wrong version of auto hotkey installed" error, you'll get a pop-up that asks you if you want to install the VIGEM wrapper, which you should do. This part is a little scary since installing something from an auto hotkey script could technically compromise your PC. So continue at your own risk. Once the install is finished, double-click the script and tab into the game. You should see text at the top left that tells you to be at the landing and how to start the script, which is F4 to start. F4. Note that per the instructions, your in-game controller settings should be look sensitivity 3, sprint turn scale 0.4, axle and radial dead zone 0. It also says to run in windowed full screen with frames capped to 30. I was able to run it at any frame rate, but it's probably more consistent at 30. The script also works with almost any resolution. I didn't have to change anything other than my controller settings. The Discord's community is also there to help you out if you run into any problems. And notice the text on the top left says F5 to stop, F8 to exit. This will most likely get patched super soon, so farm while you can. And again, big shout out to 7 Oiler Rigs and Antra for coming up with the scripts that make this super easy. Get your loot!